G'day, I'm Rob, and you're listening to Don't Read the Comments, a spin-off show from the Doctor Who show where we don't take our own advice and we do indeed read the comments. Tonight I'm on the Gallifrey subreddit, and in the aftermath of Season 2 of Doctor Who, of Ncuti Gatwa going, of people wondering what's going on with the series, I've found a thread called "Do You Think Russell T Davies Should Step Down as Doctor Who Showrunner?" And the lead post from Cool Cover 2327 runs thus. Since the finale aired, I've noticed a lot of people questioning whether Russell T Davies should continue as showrunner. Much of the discussion seems rooted in concerns about whether he's still the right fit for Doctor Who in today's television landscape. Some feel he might be slightly out of step with what modern audiences expect or respond to. Not to be rude, but he has given me slight boomer vibes. He seemed to come into this new era thinking that content and shocking moments that create conversation is the key to making a show work in the social media age. Whereas it's not that at all. The television shows that are thriving today, Severance, Stranger Things, Andor, Adolescence, don't have creatives who set out to create television that will generate content. They just set out to make good television, and because it's so good, those conversations and that content RTD is so obsessed about occurs naturally. To be clear, there's no hate here. I genuinely think he's a brilliant writer and credit him for reviving the show 20 years ago in 2005. I'm just wondering if his style and methods is still what the series needs at this point in time. I think that's a great post, and thus far it's got 379 answers. I won't be reading them all, but I'd like to run through some of them now and throw in my thoughts where I have them, because this is a topic, many times on the Doctor Who show, Dave has mentioned RTD's obsession with creating, wouldn't this make a great TikTok? And I can't do the voice that Dave does, but if you've listened to our show in the past, you know this is a topic that's come up before. So very timely, very interesting. Let's get into it. First comment from Nogga the Friendo. They say, showrunner and head writer need to be different jobs for two different people. And you know what? I completely agree with that. I think the concept of a showrunner, which seemed to come from the US, always made more sense in the US, where they have things like writers' rooms and so on. It's very rare in the US to have a showrunner who's actually doing all the work, or most of the work. You think of, an outlier like Babylon 5, and Joe Michael Straczynski was the showrunner and did write a lot of Babylon 5. But generally in the US, you have your showrunner, but then you have a bunch of writers under them. You have a writer's room. You have people kicking around ideas, discussing them, helping each other, and it makes the scripts all the better. Whereas when this idea sort of got transplanted to the British experience, and you have these showrunners taking on shows and trying to do everything, well, let's just say not everyone can be a Joe Michael Straczynski. Goatboy77 says, "Yep, you are right in your assessment. He is the 'how do you do, fellow kids' meme now.'" Brilliant. Slow the Path says, "It also feels like he's using the show as a platform for his political agenda in a way that has affected the quality of the show." Now, I agree with him politically, and hey, if you can be more inclusive and support those who need support, that's great. But it feels like his political agenda is more important to him now than making quality Doctor Who. Can't say I disagree with that. Paleontologist OK2296 replies to Slow the Path by saying, "Except his political agenda is just trying to come across as correct, without actually taking more than 5 seconds to think about what he's doing, resulting in awful treatment of characters like Belinda, Davros, Rose Noble, and 15, and Martha, her entire family, and Mickey in RTT1. It's not even his political agenda taking precedence over the show. It's turned into unveiled virtue signalling." No Brow Entertainment says, "I'm just astounded as to how he can be so oblivious to what he's writing. Like, there's not enough room for Belinda in the finale, so you write her out of the plot by making her a mother? We haven't had a companion married off since 1973, and that's basically what just happened." Paleontologist OK2296 returns to say, He honestly needs a babysitter at this point. Bad enough he's oblivious to it himself. Why is no one else questioning these things in all the processes a show like this goes through in production? He could have swapped Belinda and Ruby's roles. It'd have made a lot more sense, though it wouldn't have fixed his weird half-trad mum ideals. Better yet, he could actually plan what he's doing instead of winging every major decision with all the confidence in the world. I hope in the future, when we move on from RTD, that we drop this solo showrunner BS. Make it an actual team effort. And there we are. I was talking about writers' rooms earlier, so I completely agree with this. I think Doctor Who would thrive with someone in charge, or ideally a couple of people in charge, like a script editor and a producer/showrunner, and a writer's room. A bunch of people working together, kicking around ideas, helping each other. It can only make things better, and I don't understand why the show still does it the way it does it. There's a better way. Vampiric V says, I think it's less he's putting politics in. His original run was full of it, Doctor Who always has been. It's just that he's doing it really poorly. Davros, how disabled people were treated in the Reality War, the Star Beast and Rose, and the Meta Crisis, changing the Sonic because it looked like a gun. It's all done so poorly. Yep, can't disagree there either. And in fact, that whole thing, I'm changing the Sonic because, it looked like he was pointing a gun. And all the fandom was saying, well, no, it's more like he's waving a magic wand, actually. No one had actually thought of it as a gun. And then yet, in the finale, we've just had, how did the Doctor dispatch Omega? He took that triangulation device and he shot it at Omega like a gun. Here for Games says, putting politics into a project is like salt. If it's done well, you won't even notice it's there at all. Meanwhile, RTD is from the cooking school of shoving an entire cow salt lick into the pot. I'm here to be entertained, not educated. If I feel I'm being condescended to, I just won't watch. Seems like a lot of people feel the same way. Mr. Riddle 92 says, this post translated. Don't you think he looks tired? TSSD says, the problem right now is if he steps down, there's not a ton of obvious choices. He needs to begin grooming future potential showrunners and identifying his successor, like now. Veramix responds to TSSD by saying he's been doing that for quite a few years now in different ways. Pete McTighe, already the most qualified person to take over as he's already been the lead writer of the first season of Wentworth. He's already produced a lot of Doctor Who shorts for the collection box set trailers, and RTD has co-created The War Between the Land and the Sea with McTighe, and let the reins loosen enough to give McTighe a lot of control over it. Juno Dawson, she is the least experienced in script writing and TV production of this list, but she was the lead writer of the audio series Redacted, is a celebrated author, and RTD has been mentoring her in script writing for the show. I imagine part of that training is also so she would able to be lead writer of the show down the line. Scott Hancock spent a lot of his early career working as smaller production roles in Doctor Who Confidential, The Infinite Quest, and Sarah Jane Adventures. He went on to work for Big Finish and was the producer and director on some of the more successful Big Finish ranges, including the War Master series. Recently, he was snapped up by RTD and has been a script editor since The Star Beast. I imagine there's been a lot of mentoring going on in that relationship too. And that's very interesting. I think of those three, Juno Dawson's probably a bit of a wish list pick there. Pete McTighe makes sense to me. And Scott Hancock, actually, I haven't given a lot of thought to. He does seem to sort of be in the background a little, but there's maybe some potential there. But of these three that Veramix put forward, I would say McTighe is probably the more obvious choice. It's-a-me Mario Yahoo says, at this point, I'm not sure if the show will even continue anytime soon, but if it does, I'd like someone new, preferably a much younger writer. The new generations need a chance to make their mark on the show. And isn't that the truth? Honestly, I mean, when RTD was doing the reboot, he was about 41 years old. Now he's in his early 60s. It's very different. I think to get someone in their 30s, maybe early 40s, you could see something interesting happen. But having RTD back, I don't think's been the best thing. And I say that as someone who was very excited, actually, when it was announced. As if to counter what I just said, expected behaviour says, I didn't want him back in the first place. And Lycan in Darius replies to that by saying, yeah, me either. Not because of anything specific to do with him, mind. I just think the show should always look forward rather than backwards. Bringing Davis and Tennant back was just wallowing in nostalgia for the golden era, and you can't sustain anything on nostalgia for long. Ain't that the truth? Joe Amon says, I want more than anything for the show to return under completely new creative direction. I don't want any more returning doctors or companions. No more callbacks to the good old days. I want someone new with fresh ideas to guide the show into a new fantastic era. Bringing back RTD has turned out to be one of the most disastrous decisions for the health of the show, in my opinion. Electric Bow says, it's interesting that Russell didn't appear to realise which aspects of Chibnall's run were so damaging for the show. He obviously recognised the need to draw back viewers, hence the stunt return of Tennant and Tate. However, he's only doubled down on the lore-heavy, reference-heavy style we've seen since Series 12. It's like he was genuinely inspired by the Timeless Child, and you thought, you know what? We need more of that. The Bison King 2 replies to Electric Bow by saying, the lore of the show has been irrevocably since Capaldi, and a little bit before. I'm looking at you, Wartime Doctor, for up the numbering. Imagine trying to explain any of it to a potential viewer. It's become such a mess. The sad thing is it was so unnecessary. It's the perfect premise. Magic Man shows up to any place and solves problems. The key is to keep the Magic Man relatively simple and explore all the worlds and scenarios and make that interesting. But we've spent the last 2 or 3 incarnations mining the Doctor's backstory and lore and making it an incoherent, jumbled mess. And let's finish with this one. Huge Comfort replies to the Bison King by saying, agree, the lore of Doctor Who was built on mystery and redemption. The Mystery Man, we don't even know his name, who has lived for centuries and is not defined by his past, but rather his choice to show up and help people as he writes his own redemption arc. The Timeless Child killed that lore. It took away the mystery. Instead of the Doctor's identity being the people he chooses to save, it's now his messy and complicated past. I hoped RTD would understand this and restore the heart of the show, but alas. And yeah, look, across all these comments, I can't say I disagree with any of them, and for a time, especially when Russell had just come back, I think it was easier for people who wanted to believe in him and wanted to believe in the show to just put this down to online trolls, to haters, and so on. It may have even inspired Russell to write up online content creators as being evil in this last season we've looked at as a bit of a shot at people like this. But I'm seeing it more and more, and I'm thinking it's the broader audience who is feeling this way, and certainly that's borne out by the ratings. And no, I'm not just talking overnights, I'm talking in general. The ratings are well down on what they should be, or what they could be, I should say. And a thread like that here on Reddit just compounds that. These people don't strike me as raving loonies. Do they strike you as raving loonies? These are just people who want to see good Doctor Who with good stories, tone down the style of the messaging. Not even tone down the messaging, just tone down the way it's done. And yeah, we find ourselves in a very strange position at present. But having lived through one Wilderness Years period, I can say it's not the worst thing in the world. It sometimes inspires more creativity. It inspired the NAs, MAs, EDAs, PDAs back in the day, and even Big Finish, which technically started in the Wilderness Years as well. So to go into another Wilderness Years, if indeed that's what's going to happen, some people think that's a no-brainer. Other people think we might be going into maybe some specials being made here and there just to bridge the gap between now and a proper new Doctor. And by the specials, I mean maybe with Billy Piper in the role or whatever it might be. That's a rumour going around even today. You know, it's going to be a Billy Piper and David Tennant special. So you'd have Doctors 14 and 16 if she is the Doctor. But even that's not a certainty. As we said on our hot take, the regeneration energy is still flowing around Rose as she appears, so it might just be a transition sort of phase that happens during the regeneration, and by the time the regeneration finishes, we're on a completely different Doctor. Who knows? I don't think RTD even knows. Anyway, this episode's gone on long enough. It's probably our longest episode of Don't Read the Comments, but I think it was an interesting topic today. If this is what people are out there saying, it was timely to dive into it, and I hope you've enjoyed the chat. Until next time, I've been Rob. We'll catch you next time on The Doctor Who Show.